Hello, today we're going to focus on corresponding parts of congruent polygons. So we know from things that we did in chapter 4 that if we can transform one polygon into another by doing things like translations, rotations, reflections, things like that, we can have two, if we can map one image, the pre-image onto the image, we can see that we have two congruent polygons. We were more focused on the moves to get one polygon to another in the last chapter. Today what we're going to do is we're going to be focusing on which parts of two congruent polygons are congruent to each other. So, like before, two geometric figures are congruent if and only if a rigid motion, like a translation, or a composition of rigid motions maps one of the figures onto the other. When you do these rigid motions, it maps each part of a figure to a corresponding part of its image. So looking at the pictures here below, in our two triangles here, that would say, for instance, that BC, which is the shortest side of this triangle, would map into EF, which is the shortest side of the other triangle. So today, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write congruent statements for corresponding sides and corresponding angles. It's pretty easy here to see, since everything is marked, which things are the same. BC is the same as EF because they're both the shortest sides. AB is the same as DE. They both have the two tick marks. And then AC and DF likewise. Angles, same idea. The corresponding angles are marked with the same markings as each other. If we want to talk about the two polygons as a whole, we have to list the corresponding vertices in the same order. So you can generally pick the order, but make sure that you're consistent between the two. So if I want to call this first triangle ABC, notice we're starting with A, which has the smallest angle, B, the largest angle, which is marked with 3, and then C, the middle-sized angle, which is marked with 2 arcs there. So if I wanted to say that the other triangle is congruent, I have to go in the same order. A, B, C is congruent to D, E, F. If I wanted to call it differently, I could say B, C, A is congruent to E, F, D. So order is very, very, very important. So to start this out, we're going to start by writing some congruent statements of our own. So we're going to say triangle something is congruent to triangle something. And then we're also going to identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts, so congruent sides and congruent angles. So I'm going to just go alphabetical here for my first triangle. Triangle JKL is congruent to, I have to make sure I go in the same order. So JK is the same as TS. So I'm going to say triangle TSR. So notice that we went from 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like so. I can't switch the order of this since I have JKL. If I did JKL in a different order, then TSR would be in a different order as well. So that's my congruent statement. Now I'm going to talk about all the pairs of congruent corresponding parts. So you can do sides first, you can do angles first, it doesn't matter. I am going to start with sides just because I can. So I'm going to go with my side that's marked with 1 tick mark. I say that JK segment is congruent to, you need to find the other segment that's only marked with 1, which is TS. Now ST, TS, we have to go in the same order. We go from the angle with 2 to the angle with 3, angle with 2, angle with 3. Now let's keep going. My next segment, KL, is congruent to, so I'm going from the 3 to the 1. Going from the 3 to the 1 is SR in the other triangle. And then my last side, LJ, is congruent to, here I went from 1 to 2. Let's do the same thing here. 1 to 2 is RT. So that takes care of my sides. I also need to do all of my angles. You can name your angles one of two ways. You can either do angle J, angle K, angle L, or you can do the 3-letter names, LJK, JKL, KLJ. Since I'm able to label these with just one letter, I'm going to do the one letter because it's faster. So angle J is congruent to, what's the one that matches up with this? It's angle T. And then do the same thing for the other angles. Angle K has the 3 marks. Angle S has the 3 marks. So K is congruent to S. And then last but not least, that leaves angle L congruent to angle R. So we have our congruent statement, which talks about the polygons as a whole. There are 3 sides, so I have 3 congruent parts there. There are 3 angles, so I have 3 congruent parts there. Let's try one more. So I'm going to start with our congruent statement. Triangle M and P. So again, you can pick whatever order you want. Is congruent to, now let's do the other triangle. We went from the angle marked with 2 to the angle marked with 3 to the angle marked with 1. So I'm going to do the same order here. 2, 3, 1 is triangle Y, X, Z. So that takes care of our congruent statement. Now we need to go through all of our sides and our angles. So I'm going to do sides first. Segment MN is congruent to which one matches up with that. It would be YX. Again, order very important. Segment NP or side NP is congruent to XZ. And last but not least, PM is congruent to ZY. Now let's take care of our angles. Again, I'm going to do the 1-letter angle names because I can here. So I have angle M, that's the one marked with 2, is congruent to the other one marked with 2, which is angle Y. Angle N is marked with 3 arcs, so is angle X, so N is congruent to angle X. And then our leftovers, angle P is congruent to angle Z. So part of what you're doing today is making sure that you're doing your congruent statements properly. Order is important, so the order of your first statement dictates the order of things on the other side of the congruent symbol. The other thing we're going to focus on for today is finding missing measures, which we can do fairly easily with the information that they've given us. So we need to know which things match up. These start off with a congruent statement. This right here says that XYZ is congruent to MNL. So notice that X and M are in the same spot. So angle X and angle M are congruent. Y and N are in the same spot. So N and Y are congruent. And then Z and L match up. So Z and L. Also because of that, let's see. So let's mark in what we know angle-wise. That means that since X is 33, that M is also 33. Since N is 124, Y is 124. Side lengths going in the same order. XY, which is this side length right here, is the same as MN, which is this side length right here. Since MN is 8, that means XY is also 8. LN, which is this side, or sorry, let's go NL. NL, which is this side right here, is congruent to YZ, which is this side right here. Since LN is 12, YZ is 12. So I'd actually answered more than our questions are asking for. Let's see what the questions are asking for. First one is asking what is the measure of angle Y. We see that angle Y is the same as N, which is 124 degrees. XY was the same as NL. And so that's going to be the same as, XY was the same as MN, which is going to be 8. So you're welcome to go through and label everything like I did, or just focus in on the things they're asking for. Last thing we're going to look at is the same idea, just a little more complicated. So this last one, everything was marked with just numbers. Here we see we have some expressions. So they want us to find the value of X, find the value of Y, but we can use this congruent statement first like we did before. So DEFG is congruent to SPQR. So that means D angle is congruent to angle S. E angle is congruent to angle P. Q and F are congruent. And then last but not least, G and R are congruent. Alrighty. And then we can see that we need to find the value of x, find the value of y. So first, look at what you need to be able to do first. This expression for the angle has y and x in it, which means we'll have to find x first in order to be able to figure out y. The expression with the length here, 2x minus 4, has only an x in it. So if we can find an equation that lets us solve for x, it'll help us find y as well. So what side matches up with QR? So QR is the same as FG. So since QR is 2x minus 4, and it's congruent to FG, which is 12, we can say 2x minus 4 equals 12 and solve that out. So add 4 to both sides, and then get x by itself. We end up with x equals 8. So the value of x is x equals 8. They could have also said find QR. If they asked you to find QR, you'd have to plug that 8 in for x. Since they're just asking for the value of x, this is where you stop. All right, now we need to find the value of y. So which one do we use to find the value of y? So angle Q here is the one that's got this y involved. Angle Q is the same as angle F. So I can say that since angle Q is congruent to angle F, that 6y plus x is equal to 68. But we know from this part here that x equals 8, so 6y plus 8 equals 68. I just subbed in that x equals 8. Now I solve my equation, subtract, divide, and we get that, oops, I made a mistake there, 68 minus 8 is not 68, it is 60. We end up with y equals 10. Again, they could have asked you to find the measure of that angle, but all they wanted to know is the value of y. So we say y equals 10, and we are all finished. So again, make sure you're following your order very carefully.